We are on episode 26 of the Lessons from Last Time podcast, and we've done 25 episodes. So every Monday we release the episodes. And for this week, rather than doing an interview, which, by the way, those will kick back up in next Monday's episodes. But this week, what I decided to do is just take a minute and talk about the podcast for some time, just to give you some background on what it is, why it exists, and then some of the things that we've learned and that specifically I've learned over the last 25 episodes. So the podcast originally, the intent was to create something for mortgage folks that were going through difficult times and really to tap back into those 2008 lessons, the lessons from the time that the market was really bad and the things that were going on that were tough and really dive into those and figure out, what are the lessons that we can use when we go into the mortgage industry now in 2023 or whenever you're listening to this. And that was the intent of the podcast. And so we called up a lot of our mortgage friends and started bringing mortgage friends in. And again, the goal was just to talk mortgage. And I think it was my second episode that we did. It was the episode with 𝗘𝗍𝗶𝘀𝗍, and we were talking mortgage for a minute. And then we got into her husband's battle with cancer, which he passed in 2021. And I remember the moment for me when we're talking and I went, oh, dang. Like here I thought that struggle for people was going to be working in a difficult mortgage industry, but that there's so many bigger things in play.
2014, my husband got diagnosed with cancer. So we had a 4-year-old daughter at the time. And this was a year before I went back to school, believe it or not. He got diagnosed with this crazy, it was thyroid cancer, but it had metastasized to bone. So by the time it showed up, it was already stage 4. And there was a lot of different treatments available. And they did all of those over the course of the next 7 years, basically. But I just remember that day getting that text from him, and we'd been fighting about something ridiculous the day before. And he had this lump in his jaw, and he thought that he had an impacted molar or something, and the dentist thought it was TMJ, and it turned out it was a tumor that had grown in the bone in his jaw, and there was tumors down his spine that he didn't know about. And he was in the doctor's office and he texted me, and I was still pissed at him about something ridiculous from the day before. And he's like, the doctor doesn't think this is TMJ. And I was like, well, it's not cancer, is it? And he said, that's the fear. And I remember seeing that and thinking, shit, this is one of those moments where there's a before, then there's an after.
It's rare for somebody to go through something and not have, other things going on, right? Life happens. And so that was a big moment for me when it kind of shifted. And so if you haven't heard that 𝗘𝗍𝗶𝘀 episode, you definitely want to do that. But it shifted to me to go, okay, what else should we, what other lessons can we take away from different struggles? And as I've talked to more and more people, I've just learned that everybody's got stuff, and it's hard to see people, who are so successful and think, oh, dang, they're so much better than I am, or, wouldn't it be nice to not have problems? And I think as the social media world gets more and more influential, we start looking at people's best selves and start wondering if we're the only ones dealing with struggle. And so it's been just interesting to get these people who, we might put on a pedestal, or we might say, yeah, they've got no problems, and then have them be just super honest about what their problems are. And for me, that's been huge. So I love doing the podcast just to get those stories out for myself. And I just keep thinking through the lessons that I learned. So if we were to go back to episode 1 with Lisa McCormick, when she said, I'm just going to do it again. She was talking about, dealing with difficult markets and that she's just going to do it again. It keeps ringing in my ears afterwards now that that's her attitude. She's just going to do it again. And what if I had that attitude, rather than going through, my tendency is to go back through all the things I did wrong. And instead, what if I were to say, we did a pretty good job. What if we do that again? That's, answer the call. I just want to feel for a second what it felt like to have this amazing industry with everything was easy and it was cool. You had to accept that and go, I'm so thankful for that. And now I'm going to go earn it again.
Right.
So it's a line that a lot of people don't find, where people are like, even in your
I'm gonna do it
conversation, you
again.
found out somebody was like, I wish I never had it.
I was blown away.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it again, Ken.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it again. The first rate I ever quoted on my first loan was 7.75. I grew up in the era where my first home loan was 14.99 on an ARM that went up to 18.99, and there was no cap. And so I ended up selling my house, renting for 2 years and starting over.
Yeah.
I have had a jumbo at 10. I have had a jumbo at 8.5. I just kept refining down to, 6, then to 4.5. My current loan is at 225. I probably will never see that again in my lifetime. I hope not. It's not healthy.
Right.
But it's a matter of just getting people to understand right now that what they've seen is not the normal.
That was amazing. Hearing Patrick Palmer talk about getting a fax saying you need to come up with this much money in a short amount of time. And what does that do while his daughter was sick? That Patrick Palmer episode was so influential.
We had taken my daughter to see like 7 physicians or something crazy. She kept having this weird pitching, with this weird ear infection, and she would get it, and she would take antibiotics, and it would go away. And 4 weeks later, she'd get another one and go away. And they put tubes in her ears, and then they were going to try to take her tonsils out. They couldn't figure out. They were coming up with all these weird diagnoses, and I was like, I don't know. Anyways, so Steve's wife says at the time, you need to go see a naturopath.
Oh wow!
And I was like, I'm taking her like 7 doctors. I get files. Like, I'm out of my, like, if you haven't slept for a year, you've been through some times where you don't sleep and the stress is high, your anxiety is out of control, and you're just like, you're pulling your, like, everything is frustrating. Well, this whole process, not only was work frustrating, but this is frustrating. We do. And I remember the appointment because the naturopath says, oh, this kid is allergic to milk. You need to stop feeding the kid milk at night.
Oh my God.
And I just shook I'm just like, I can't, I'm like, you're wrong. It can't be this. She's, blah, 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 whatever. Take the kid off milk. This kid never got sick again.
Are you serious?
So she was drinking milk at night. The milk, your ears and your nose and your throat are all tied together.
Yeah.
And she didn't have fully developed ear canals, which I didn't know at the time, obviously. And so the milk would kind of leak back into her ears as she's sucking on a baba or her sippy cup at night. And every 4 weeks, that's how long it takes the bacteria to grow in your ear canal. And she spotted it like that.
No way.
And what a huge relief.
Oh, yeah.
For that part to be gone, because we were thinking really scary stuff. Like, is this leukemia? Is this something that's undetected? Like, cause it just, when your kid gets 105-degree fever every 4th week, like clockwork, and you're rushing them to the hospital, you're just like, I can't do this anymore.
I mean, I can go through episode after episode and the things I've learned. The Sarah Keller episode, which is still our top episode that's been listened to and downloaded, and her talking about what it's like to be young and have made mistakes where people would look at her and judge her. And now you see this super powerful, leader in the mortgage industry, and you go, okay, she went through some difficult times, but look at her now.
I feel like I've always had this one part of my life. So I'm going to totally cry.
I know, I'm already there.
Okay, you're
you can
crying.
see it. Sorry.
In lieu of ever being able to have what I want, or not just want or need, probably deserve from a relationship with another human, a man, I have pushed myself in all these other directions, right? And I know how to do those things so well, right? I know how to push like crazy. I know how to be successful. I know how to close tons of home loans. But I honestly feel like when it comes to that other part of my life, I'm dyslexic. I don't understand. I feel like I can't read it in a book, and I've not seen very good examples of how to have a healthy relationship with someone. And I think right now it's really scary still. Like, of all the things that I'll go conquer, right? That's terrifying.
Wow.
I don't know how to do it. And I feel guilty saying it, but I let somebody treat me for 13 years in a way it's embarrassing to tell other people about, because they see me as this incredibly successful person that's pushed so hard and done these things. And if I tell people about how I was in a relationship that way, it just completely is so contradictory to them. It doesn't make sense that this person that's so outwardly all these things would then be in this other form of their life where it's so different. And all I can say is I just had always thought if I could just be more perfect. And so I guess if we're telling your daughters, my daughter, anything, is like, just be you, people like you for you. But that's still something I really struggle with.
I've just been able to take so much away from those. If you haven't already, please definitely check out the Matt Ellarding episode where I brought in my buddy 𝗘𝗽𝗀𝗀𝗀, who, by the way, was a guest on my podcast, and his episode is outstanding in talking about waking up on Monday, going to work while having cancer, and then on Wednesday night going home, Thursday getting a procedure every Thursday, Friday throwing up all day, and then recovering over the weekend, doing it again on Monday. That's an incredibly powerful story.
I would schedule my treatments on Thursday. I would go into the office on Monday, and I would work Monday through Thursday. I would work half a day on Thursday. I'd take myself to the clinic. I was living by myself at the townhouses out there at Two Creeks at Camas Meadows. So I'd drive myself in. My son and daughter my daughter was in California. My son was living elsewhere. I took Friday off so I could have some recovery time. And then by Monday, I was back at work. And I'm not saying, and I doubt anyone that worked with or for me at the time would say Kirk was at his best, because I clearly wasn't. But I showed up. I still continued to do what I needed to do. And then I endured 3 years of on and off cancer treatment.
And I asked him to come back and help me interview Matt Ellarding. And those of you who know Matt Ellarding know why you kind of need two people to be able to wrangle that guy. But, Kirk knows Matt. And so bringing him in and having Matt, who is a uber massive producer, loan officer, talk about battling opioid addiction.
I was a little bit, if you have Heather here, a lot of it, but I was a little bit difficult to deal with at home, because if all of a sudden I ran out, that becomes my radar focus. I mean, where am I going to get, never mind, kid's birthday or anniversary cards. I need to go get my next set of pills. And all the while I'm trying to fake it. I mean, I don't want them to know that I'm doing this. I'm going to keep it from them. And I would tell like Rocky, and I would, he would try to help me say, okay, well, let's taper you down and get this behind you. And then suddenly he got to the point where he knew that I was in trouble. I knew that I was in trouble. And that's when 30 days, I'm going to do this. And that's when the intervention took place. But yeah, there was a time I was really shameful about it, and now it's not that I wear it like a badge of honor, but I'm okay with it, because like Kirk and like others who've had, incredible adversity, it's part of my journey. It's made me stronger. I don't think that if that doesn't happen, my life's going to be fine, but I think I'm stronger today, and I'm able to deal with adversity in a different way, because of that setback.
The fact that these friends are being so honest on the podcast is huge, because through this vulnerability, I've been told by a lot of people that, they heard that episode and went, wow, I'm dealing with some things. And it helps people when others are willing to be honest about their struggles. And so it's just, time and time again, I'm amazed at how willing people are to share. Michael J. Barnes, MJB, my buddy, was our most recent podcast, so episode 25 that we released, and his story of, having ADHD as a kid when there wasn't such a thing and it had just been diagnosed, and so he was put in all the special classes. Hearing his story of the battle to greatness. You were diagnosed early.
Yeah, in first grade.
Okay.
Second grade. It was second grade, 1972, and we lived in El Centro, California, which is a little teeny tiny town with very few people. Right there on the line, border of Mexico. So there's Mexicali. It's Mexicali, Calexico, and El Centro right there. So mom and dad would have to take me to San Diego to see a psychologist, right? Because the crazy stuff that people would make up in that period of time. For instance, I drew eyelashes on my characters, cartoons, right? So you draw stick figures, but mine have eyelashes. They're like, something's wrong with this kid.
What?
I swear that's for real. My mom's gonna watch this and she's gonna be like, oh my God, I remember that, and she'll tell the whole story. That's real. That's for real. Yeah. And then they're like, well, he's got this thing. It's called attention deficit hyperactive disorder, blah, blah, blah. And it requires this and this and this. And like, no one had ever heard of it.
Right.
And so I was considered the first generation of Ritalin. And even though a lot of people, it's a controversial issue. I take not really offense to that, but like I would be dead or in jail if it wasn't for the medication that I was able to have as a kid. But it got weird when we moved to Phoenix. We had to find new doctors and stuff. And one of the things that they decided, just the doctors decided, is that, well, once you reach puberty, you didn't have it anymore.
Oh my gosh. As a kid's disease. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Literally, again, I could go through every single one of the conversations we've had. The Deborah Bird story about being a surprise twin and growing up the way she did.
We've had a lot of challenges since childhood that most people probably would never expect, but it gives me the confidence and the courage to know that without a doubt, I can get through pretty much anything because I've always had to from a young age. It's like if I ever had to bet on myself, I would go all in because I never really had parents to depend on. Our dad lives in the Philippines now. We haven't seen him since we were like 20, but it's like sink or swim. The only option we had was to swim. Like we didn't have the luxury of taking risk because we had mom or dad as a backup plan to even go live with. Like my dad lived with me in college. So, with all that pain is to me, a lot of times the very portal of transformation needed to help you know you can overcome anything with the right perspectives. Just sometimes our perspective is not where it could be. So how are we constantly challenging our vantage point to make sure that we're not missing on other possible opportunities or the gifts of the pain?
I mean, it really is impactful. And I need, all the listeners here to know why we do this. And the biggest reason is I know that people can feel alone out there, like they're the only ones going through things. And it's to expose that nobody really is alone in what they're dealing with. And isolation is one of the most dangerous things people can do when they're feeling that way. And my goal is to help people realize that if they reach out and talk to people who are going through similar things, that it's likely that others are willing to share how they got through it. And so we just continue to bring on people that got through difficult times to try and bring those thoughts and ideas and lessons and stories to the friends that listen to this podcast. So it's kind of why we do it. I'm going to actually, in a couple episodes here, you're going to hear Kirk Faulkner is going to interview me on the podcast, which was his idea, not mine. And I'm just pulling other people's stories out, but I will be sharing my story in there. We've got some really amazing guests on the docket for coming in and sharing. So I thank all of you that are listening to the podcast. I would love it if you would jump in there and throw us a rating, follow the podcast, download the episodes. We don't make money off this podcast. So this is just for us to be able to share those stories. We do have all of these on video in app.knowledgecube.com. So some of you are watching it there. In fact, a lot of our viewers watch it there. But if you're not watching it there, you can definitely watch it there and actually see the videos. And I think the videos can be very powerful when you're watching us talk about these things. So definitely go into app.knowledgecube.com. Those are all free. So, if you go in there and watch it there, you can get that free edition. What we do for a living is actually we create a ton of mortgage industry content and real estate industry. And so if you're watching this or if you get a lot out of the podcast, we have a $360 subscription on the Coop that would give you access to all the training we've been doing. So in addition to doing this to try to help the industry out, what we've been doing is just building these quick win videos and building a lot of training with quizzes and all that stuff on how to do loans, because it's our belief that the experts are the ones who get to win in the future, and becoming an expert and really sharpening your skills and getting in there and remembering how to do the hard loans and getting yourself trained up is going to make you more successful in the future. So if you do love the podcast, you're going to love the rest of the training we do. And I would encourage you to jump into into app.knowledgecube.com and go in there and consider becoming a premium member, which would give you that. Basically everything we do, you have access to. So that is how we make money. But for now, definitely continue listening and watching the podcast and reach out to us. Let us know. I would love to hear the stories that are impacting you the most. And like I said, we'll just keep going, bringing you some of the greatest stories that we know of in the mortgage industry. So Stay tuned. We've got some great stuff for you in the future. This was a shorter episode just to give you kind of that pause to reflect, to think back to, the reasons that we did this, and then get you encouraged to go back and watch some of those other episodes. And then we will see you next Monday on episode 27 when we dive right back in with our next guest who's gone through some things and is willing to share those things. So again, thank you for listening, and we hope we're doing a good job for you, and have a great day.